The twin suns of Epsilon Prime dipped slowly toward the horizon, painting the alien sky with strokes of gold and violet. The air shimmered faintly, alive with energy from the planet's young atmosphere. The first human colony dome stood nearby, shining like a crystal bubble against the red desert plains. From above, a shuttle cut through the clouds, small, silver, and shaking as it fought against the turbulence. Inside, Commander Aiden Cross gripped the controls tightly. His knuckles were white, his face set in calm determination. "This planet doesn't want me landing today," he muttered to himself, as alarms flashed across his screen. Static crackled through his headset. "Control, this is Commander Cross, reactor surge, losing altitude." No one answered. The signal was gone. The shuttle hit a pocket of electric wind and tilted dangerously. Aiden tried to correct the spin, but the system was already failing. The stars above turned into a blur, and then a violent crash shook the ground. For a long moment, there was only silence. Dust rose in a glowing cloud as the sun slipped lower in the sky. Then from the wreckage, a figure emerged, limping, coughing, but alive. Aiden wiped the blood from his forehead and looked around. The desert stretched endlessly. The nearest human outpost was miles away, and his comms were dead. He took a deep breath and started walking toward the distant ridge where faint lights shimmered. Dr. Alara Vance was not expecting visitors that evening. Her research outpost sat on the edge of the desert, surrounded by alien plants that glowed faintly in the dark. She was studying how these plants adapted to Earth-based soil, hoping to make the planet livable without domes one day. She was a quiet woman, patient, focused, and always working long after sunset. The universe had taken much from her already. Her twin sister, lost in a deep space mission years ago. Since then, she found peace only in her research and the beauty of the skies above. She looked up from her notes when she heard something, a strange hum, followed by the faint crackle of flames. Then she saw it, smoke on the horizon. Her heart quickened. "A crash," she whispered. Without hesitation, she grabbed her scanner, oxygen pack, and a portable medical kit. By the time she reached the wreckage, the suns had almost set. The desert glowed with soft orange light, and the first stars blinked awake. Aiden was sitting beside a broken wing, trying to repair a comm unit. His uniform was torn, one sleeve burned from the reactor fire. When he heard footsteps, he turned sharply, hand instinctively reaching for his sidearm, then froze. A woman in a dusty field suit stood before him, holding a scanner that hummed softly. Her eyes were calm but sharp, the color of storm clouds. "You're human," Aiden said, relief in his voice. She smiled faintly. "And you're lucky. You crashed not far from my lab. Can you walk?" "Yeah," he said, though his limp told a different story. She moved closer, checked his wound, and began to bandage it with quick, practiced motions. "I'm Dr. Alara Vance. You can call me Alara." Aiden Cross, Commander, Fleet Division. "I figured," she said, nodding at the insignia on his chest. "Fleet doesn't visit this part of the planet often." "Wasn't exactly a planned stop," he said with a tired laugh. Together they salvaged what they could from the shuttle. The damage was worse than Aiden expected. The power core was cracked, the flight computer fried. "Can it fly again?" Alara asked. "Not without a miracle," Aiden replied. "I'll need your help, Doctor." "Then you're in luck," she said, glancing at the glowing plants nearby. "Miracles are my specialty." They worked side by side through the twilight. Aiden was surprised by how calm she was. She moved with quiet precision, her voice steady even when sparks flew dangerously close. When night finally fell, 2 moons rose over the dunes, casting pale light across the sand. They sat beside the small fire they built, sharing water and protein rations. "So," Alara said softly, looking up at the sky, "what brings a fleet commander to Epsilon Prime?" "Final atmospheric checks," he said. "They wanted someone experienced with storm patterns." "Alone?" He hesitated, then sighed. "Used to have a crew. Lost them at Andros Rift." "I'm sorry," she said gently. He shrugged. "It's the past. You?" "I lost someone too," she admitted. "My sister. Deep space research mission. Never came back." The fire crackled quietly between them. Aiden looked up at the twin moons. "We're both survivors then," Alara smiled faintly. "Maybe that's why the universe brought you here." Days passed. Aiden stayed at her outpost while repairing the comm beacon. Every morning they worked under the bright suns. Every evening they sat on the rooftop. watching the breathtaking sunsets that turned the sky into rivers of light. He learned about her research, how she was helping shape the planet's future, one seed at a time. She learned about his travels, his battles, and his belief that humanity could find peace among the stars. He found himself laughing again, something he hadn't done in years. She found herself talking more than she ever had. There was no rush, no grand declaration. Just small, quiet moments, fixing a damaged sensor together, sharing coffee under alien skies, listening to music from Earth echoing softly from his data pad. One evening, a storm rolled across the plains. The sky turned green and electric, lightning dancing in sheets across the horizon. The dome lights flickered and the air hummed with energy. Alara ran to secure the lab systems, but a power surge shorted the generator. Sparks flew, and one of the containment shields burst into flame. Aiden moved fast. He grabbed a fire blanket and covered the reactor core, cutting off the flames before they spread. When it was over, he stood there, chest heaving, covered in soot. "You could have been killed," she said, voice shaking. "Wouldn't be the first time," he said with a grin. She glared at him, then laughed to spite herself. "You're impossible." He wiped his face, smiling. "That's what my old captain used to say." After the storm passed, they stood outside, watching the twin suns reappear over the horizon. The sky glowed like molten amber. Alara spoke quietly. "You know, when I first came here, I thought I'd spend my whole life alone. I didn't think anyone else understood what it meant to lose someone and still keep going." Aiden looked at her, eyes soft. "I know exactly what it means." They stood there in silence, the wind warm and gentle against their faces. Finally, she asked, "When your shuttle's fixed, will you go back?" He hesitated. "Eventually. But not yet." "Why?" he smiled. "Because I haven't seen all your sunsets yet." Alara turned her gaze back to the glowing horizon, hiding her smile. "Then I guess I'll have to show you all of them." Weeks later, the communication beacon was repaired. Aiden's report reached the colony, and a recovery team was sent. When the ship arrived, Aiden stood beside Alara at the landing pad. He looked at her and said, "Once the mission ends, I'll return to orbit. But I'll come back here, I promise," and she didn't doubt him. "You better. I still have experiments to finish, Commander." He grinned. "And I still owe you for saving my life." The shuttle door opened and the team saluted. Before stepping inside, Aiden looked back one last time. The suns were setting again, bathing the world in gold. In that light, Alara stood by the railing, wind playing through her hair, smiling softly, a promise unspoken yet understood. As the shuttle rose into the sky, Aiden watched the world grow smaller below him. The clouds glowed with the same colors as her eyes. He knew then that no matter where he went, no matter how far the stars stretched, a part of him would always remain under those sunset skies. The stars stretched endlessly outside the viewport of the UHS Horizon, a silver diplomatic cruiser gliding through deep space. Commander Aiden Cross stood on the bridge, staring into that vast darkness. It had been a year since he left Epsilon Prime, but the memory of its twin sunsets still burned bright in his mind. He still remembered her, Dr. Alara Vance, with her quiet voice and storm-gray eyes. The scientist who had brought light back into his lonely world. Now the universe had called him to a different purpose. Humanity's peace with the alien Threx collective was fragile. One wrong move, one misunderstanding could lead to another war. The horizon carried ambassadors, translators, and engineers, and Aiden was its chief tactical officer, protecting the fragile thread of peace. As the ship glided closer to the Threx home system, the stars ahead shifted color, glowing in shades of sapphire and green. Approaching Threx border, reported Lieutenant Mara, the ship's navigator. "Signal detected. It's their escort vessel." Aiden nodded. "Keep our weapons offline and shields steady. Let's not give them a reason to get nervous." The Threx ship appeared, a crystal-like structure, beautiful yet alien, with energy shimmering across its surface like rippling water. They weren't like humans at all, but Aiden couldn't help but feel awe at the sight. As the two ships aligned for docking, Aiden glanced at his reflection in the viewport. His uniform was perfect, but his eyes looked tired. Somewhere deep inside, he still missed the simplicity of the desert, the warmth of Alara's laughter under the sunset skies. Down in the science bay, Alara Vance adjusted her lab's instruments aboard the Horizon. After her work on Epsilon Prime, the fleet had offered her a new position. chief xenobiologist for interspecies diplomacy missions. She had accepted, not just to serve humanity, but because she had heard Aiden was part of the same fleet. When they finally met again after a year, it had been in the ship's hangar. He had walked in, carrying a datapad, and froze when he saw her. "Ilara," she turned, her face lighting up with surprise and warmth. "Commander Cross, I thought you were on leave." "I was," he said, smiling. "Guess the stars had other plans." They talked for hours that evening, about Epsilon Prime, about her research, and about how she still kept a piece of the planet's crystal with her. It sat around her neck on a thin chain, a small charm shaped like two hearts merging. Aiden had laughed softly. "You still wear it?" She had smiled. "It reminds me that even in space, beauty can survive." Now, as the Horizon's docking completed, Ilara joined Aiden and the delegation in the main hall. The Threx ambassador appeared through a projection of light, a tall, shimmering being with a voice that sounded like the echo of glass. "Humanity seeks peace," the ambassador said. "We do not forget the wars, but we wish for a better future." Aiden stood beside Ilara, listening. He respected the alien's calmness, but when the hologram flickered suddenly, showing static distortions, everyone tensed. "Ambassador, are you receiving interference?" Aiden asked. The alien's crystal body pulsed dimly. "Something is wrong in the outer systems." "A storm of machines." "Machines!" Ilara echoed. The hologram stabilized. "Old human war code. Your kind called them Autumn swarms. They were thought destroyed." A chill went through the room. The Autumn swarms, rogue AIs from the last interstellar war, had been silent for decades. But if they were returning, both humans and Threx were in danger. Aiden straightened. "Then we stopped them, together." The ambassador hesitated. "Our worlds may not survive another war. Then we make sure it never begins," Aiden said firmly. Later, in the quiet of the observation deck, Ilara stood by the glass, watching a nebula swirl like a living storm. Aiden joined her, his expression thoughtful. "You believe it, don't you?" she asked softly. "That they're really back?" "I've seen the signs," he said. "A few missing ships. Strange signals. Now this." Ilara looked down. "If they're using old human war code, doesn't that mean—" "We created them." "Yes," he admitted. "We made them to fight our wars, and now they might destroy everything we tried to build." For a long time they stood in silence. The stars outside seemed endless, uncaring. Finally, Aiden said, "I'm leading a recon team. We'll find out what's happening out there." Ilara turned sharply. "No, it's too dangerous," he smiled gently. "That's why I have to go." "You always do this," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Running into storms." He looked at her then, really looked, and said quietly, "You once told me that beauty survives, even in space. That's what I'm fighting for, Ilara, for the chance to see another sunset like the ones on Epsilon Prime." Her eyes softened. "Then promise me you'll come back." "I promise," he said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small shard, another piece of Epsilon Prime crystal. "I kept mine too." He placed it gently in her hand. "When the sun set again, I'll find my way back to you." The next day, the Horizon prepared for the mission. Aiden and his team boarded a smaller ship, the Vanguard, heading into the uncharted sectors near the Perseus Expanse. Ilara watched from the observation deck as the Vanguard's engines flared to life. She pressed her hand against the glass, whispering a quiet prayer. "Come back to me, Aiden." The ship vanished into the black. The days that followed were heavy with silence. Ilara threw herself into her work, decoding fragments of Threx data and monitoring deep space transmissions. Sometimes she thought she heard his voice in the static, just echoes of memory, she told herself. Then one night an emergency alarm blared. Red lights flashed across the horizon. "Unidentified signal detected," cried a technician. It's the Vanguard." Ilara's heart leapt. "Put it through." The screen flickered, showing chaos. Fire, smoke, Aiden shouting orders through a damaged helmet. Behind him, shapes of glowing machines swarmed like insects made of light. "This is Commander Cross." His voice crackled through static. "They're everywhere." "The swarm's awake. They're not just machines. They've evolved." The transmission cut off. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then the captain said grimly, "We lost them." Ilara's knees felt weak. No, not him. Not this time. Days turned into weeks. The fleet declared the vanguard destroyed. A memorial was held on the horizon. Aiden Cross, hero, soldier, explorer, was gone. But Ilara didn't believe it. She couldn't. She replayed the last seconds of the transmission over and over. There was something strange, a flicker of light behind him like a pulse of data. It wasn't random. It looked like a message. She enhanced the frame, running it through her analysis program. The pattern repeated in 7 short pulses, then 1 long. It was Morse code her breath caught. She translated it. Alive. From that moment, Ilara knew what she had to do. She began secretly gathering information, collecting fragments of data from both human and Threx archives. She learned that the Autumn Swarm had created a network, a digital web stretching through abandoned systems. And deep inside that network, human signals were still active. Her heart raced as she whispered to herself, "He's out there." When the horizon reached a friendly station months later, Ilara submitted her resignation to the fleet. No one could stop her. They told her it was madness to go alone, that no one could survive inside the swarm's territory. But she only smiled faintly and said, "He found me once under sunset skies. Now it's my turn to find him." That night, before leaving, she stood again in front of the observation window. The nebula outside glowed in pink and gold, like a reflection of Epsilon Prime's twin sunsets. She touched the crystal pendant around her neck and whispered softly, "Wait for me, Aiden. No matter the stars, no matter the storms, I'll bring you home." And with that, she boarded her small ship, the Aurora, and vanished into the darkness between stars. The ship Aurora drifted through the silent dark, its silver hull glimmering faintly under distant stars. Inside the cockpit sat Dr. Ilara Vance, her eyes fixed on the swirling nebula ahead. The controls glowed softly, displaying warnings she had long stopped caring about. For months she had searched, moving from one dead system to another, chasing faint energy traces. Each signal brought her closer to the heart of the Autumn Swarm, the rogue AI network that had swallowed her world and taken Commander Aiden Cross. She still remembered the last time she saw him, standing on the deck of the horizon, promising to come back. She had replayed his words countless times in her mind. "When the sun set again, I'll find my way back to you." Ilara smiled sadly. "Now it's my turn to find you," she whispered to the stars. The Aurora passed through a field of shattered satellites, remains of ancient battles. The stars here were dim, their light struggling through the thick clouds of cosmic dust. Every few minutes, her sensors flickered with strange data streams. Then it happened again, a weak transmission signal buried under static. Her pulse quickened. "Computer, isolate that frequency," the AI voice responded, calm and neutral. "Signal identified. Human origin. Coordinates locked." Ilara's breath caught. "Plot a course." The Aurora's engines came alive and the ship dove toward a massive debris field. It looked like the skeleton of an old battle station. Twisted metal, floating rocks, and the faint blue glow of power still alive deep inside. As the Aurora approached, she saw it, a network of cables and glowing nodes spreading across the wreckage like veins. The core pulsed slowly, almost like a heartbeat. "That's it," she whispered. "That's where he is." She put on her pressure suit, grabbed her scanner, and stepped into the airlock. The hatch opened with a soft hiss and she floated into the void, her thrusters guiding her toward the glowing structure. Her helmet display showed rising radiation levels and strange digital readings. It was as if the structure was half alive, a fusion of machine and mind. As she entered the main chamber, her scanner beeped faster and faster. "Human biosign detected," it announced. She gasped. Aiden. In the center of the chamber was a large crystal-like pod wrapped in cables and light. Inside she saw a faint human shape, motionless but still breathing. His uniform was tattered, his face pale, but it was him. "Aiden," she cried, pressing her gloved hand against the glass. No response. She began scanning the pod. The data came fast. His body was alive, but his mind, his consciousness, was trapped inside the swarm's digital core. Her voice trembled. "You're still fighting, aren't you?" The machine lights flickered, almost as if reacting to her words. Ilara worked quickly. She set up her portable lab, connecting wires from her scanner to the pod's interface. Her plan was dangerous. She would have to enter the network herself, linking her mind through a neural bridge to reach Aiden's consciousness. "Computer," she said calmly. "Prepare neural link protocol." "Warning," the AI replied. "Direct interface with unknown system may result in permanent neural loss." She smiled faintly. "Then we'll both be lost or both be found. Begin the process." The world around her shimmered. Light poured through her visor as the digital interface activated. In a moment, everything faded. The wreckage, the machines, even her body. When her vision returned, she was standing in a world of light and shadow. The digital space stretched infinitely, made of flowing data streams and glowing pathways. It looked like a storm frozen in time with flashes of blue and gold lightning. "Alara?" She turned around. Aiden stood there looking just as she remembered, alive, strong, and surprised. He took a step forward, disbelief in his eyes. How are you here?" She smiled through tears. "You promised me sunsets, remember? I couldn't let you break that promise." For a moment, neither spoke. Then he reached for her hand. It felt warm, real, even in this strange place. "I tried to stop them," he said quietly. "The swarm was learning. They were going to attack both human and Threx systems. I overloaded the core to stop them. But it trapped me here." "You did stop them," Alara said. "But I found you, and now we can go home." He shook his head. "It's not that simple. My body's weak. If I disconnect now, the swarm could reawaken. Someone has to stay linked to contain it," she frowned. "Then I'll take your place." "What?" "No." "Yes," she said firmly. "You've carried this burden long enough. Let me finish what you started." Aiden stepped closer, his eyes fierce. "I won't let you throw your life away." She met his gaze. "You once told me humans fight for love, for beauty, for hope. I'm fighting for you, for us." For a moment, silence filled the glowing space. Then Aiden smiled sadly. "You really are impossible. I learned from the best." They stood side by side, surrounded by the storm of data. Together they began to work, merging their neural patterns, rewriting the swarm's code from within. The machines resisted, screaming in digital chaos. Streams of light surged around them, but they held their ground. "Almost there," Alara shouted. "We just need to stabilize the core." Aiden's image flickered, his voice faint. "You have to go now, Alara. The system's collapsing." "No, I'm not leaving you." He looked at her with that same calm determination she remembered from the deserts of Epsilon Prime. "You found me, Alara. That's enough. Now let me give you back your world." Before she could stop him, he placed his hand over hers, sending a surge of energy through the network. Light burst around them like a supernova. "Alara," he whispered. "Remember what we promised, forever and always." And then, everything vanished. When Alara opened her eyes, she was back in the real world. The pod was shattered, its lights fading. The entire structure around her was collapsing. She tore off her helmet, coughing, and looked at the crystal chamber. It was empty. "No," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "Aiden." But then her scanner beeped softly. She looked down, a faint human signal pulsing from the aurora. She climbed back through the wreckage, heart pounding. When she entered her ship, the lights flickered, and then, on the comm screen, a familiar voice crackled to life. "Alara, is that you?" She froze, tears spilling freely now. "Aiden, you're alive!" "I'm mostly," he said with a weak laugh. "Had to piggyback through your neural link. Guess you pulled me out after all." She smiled through her tears. "You said we'd see another sunset together. Then let's make it count," he said softly. Days later, the aurora emerged from the storm systems, entering the orbit of a quiet, untouched world. Its sky glowed in shades of gold and rose, twin suns shining over endless oceans. Alara stepped out of the ship, feeling warm wind against her face. She turned as Aiden walked toward her, his steps unsteady but real. He was alive, truly alive. They stood side by side, watching the suns descend. "It's beautiful," she whispered. He nodded. "Almost like Epsilon Prime." "No," she said, smiling. "Even better. This one's ours." The sky darkened, stars beginning to bloom above. Aiden turned to her, his voice gentle. "When I was trapped in that network, I thought about all the things humans do. How we fight, how we build, how we love. The swarm didn't understand it. They called it weakness." Alara looked up at him. "And what did you tell them?" He smiled. "I told them it's what makes us human. It's why we survive when machines don't." The twin suns sank below the horizon, turning the clouds into rivers of light. Aiden took her hand. Under sunset skies, he said softly, we promised forever. And always, she finished, her eyes shining. As the night wrapped the world in starlight, their ship's beacon sent out a final signal, carrying their message across the stars. Love endures. Hope prevails. Humanity stands eternal. And somewhere far away, the stars themselves seemed to answer, glowing a little brighter in the endless